and welcome to our webinar, How to Save Your Marriage Even If Your Spouse Has Checked Out. I want to start off just by saying, who this is for. This training here, this webinar is for those who really want to save or improve their marriage. But you might be in a situation where your spouse has been pulling back. They might be unwilling to work on the marriage. They might be even getting to the point where they're saying that they want a separation or divorce. But this is also for those who really want to have better connection and love, for those who want to rebuild trust and some openness in their marriage, and especially if you want to create some more passion in your marriage again. If things have gotten boring, we want to help you create that passion again. And, if you just want to bring that fun back in your marriage, this is for you. I mean, if not, if this is not what you're looking for, you're probably in the wrong place. So in the next 50 minutes, these are some of the things that we're going to go over. We really want to help you get some results. We want to teach you how to quickly get out of the loop that you've been stuck in and actually start seeing some change. So if you feel like you've been stuck and don't know where to go next, and this is what we're going to help you see here. If you're looking for some peace, we want to teach you what to do to reduce tension and conflicts, and finally, actually feel some peace in your home again. We want to help you feel some hope for your marriage again as well. How to get your spouse from the point where they might be saying, hey, I'm ready to leave. They have one foot out the door, and we want to help you have some hope that they can be back in your arms again. We want to help you to get that happiness that you've been looking for. How to get to the point where you actually enjoy being around each other again, happy being married. And we want to help you to save some time, some energy, and some effort with getting all that, not having to waste years and years in therapy just to make some moderate amount of change. I want to point out that we're absolutely not selling anything in this webinar. That's not what we're here for. But, I do think that the information is going to be really useful for you. And so I want you to stick around. Absolutely. And so as an incentive to do so, we want to give you a gift for sticking to the end, a free relationship mindset guided meditation. And now I'm going to ask you some questions here. Does this sound like you? Do you ever lie in bed at night, feeling uncomfortable? You might have just had an argument and you have all this leftover emotion. You might even have the words of your last argument running through your head. Do you ever wonder why you can't seem to have a normal conversation with your spouse anymore? Do you ever feel like, you keep reaching out and trying to fix things, and it just seems like they keep pushing away? It just seems to make things worse as you try to reach out to them. Or do you ever feel just some absolute dread at the thought of what divorce would mean to you? What it would do to your children, what it would do to the rest of your family? I want to know if you ever feel stuck. Do you ever feel uncertain how to fix problems? And, because frankly, they just keep coming back no matter how many times that you try to fix them. And I want to know if you've spent time, effort, money, if you've spent close to a fortune trying to solve these problems, but you just, once again, you still feel stuck. Nothing seems to have a lasting effect. And I want to ask, if this sounds like you, do you ever feel alone? Like you have almost no connection with each other anymore? Maybe you had shared hobbies or interests, but not really anymore. You don't do anything together. And the time that you do have together is simply, it's unenjoyable. Or do you ever feel like you just want to have your friend and your partner back? Mostly I want to ask if this sounds like you, if you feel like you have no idea how to get your spouse back, but you've been hungry to actually do what it takes, to learn what it takes to get them back. You see, if you felt like this at all, then I have some good news for you, because those things are not the real problem. They hurt. It hurts to feel alone, and it hurts to be stuck, but those aren't the real problem. These are simply symptoms of the problem. And this is because you haven't really addressed the real problems in your relationship. You haven't addressed what really needs to be fixed. That's why these things are still going on. I want you just to imagine for a second how good it will feel to have your spouse back fully in your life. To wake up in the morning excited, actually excited to spend the day together, doing all those things that you love to do, whether it's going out to the gym or, going out for dinner and a movie, actually being excited for those things, to actually have some certainty that you and your partner are committed to each other for life. Can you imagine feeling completely at peace in your own home? You're not dreading another fight, not having to worry about another lonely evening that's looming in the background. Can you imagine actually having a level of security in your life and actually being proud of the relationship that you have? Having the kind of relationship where you fall head over heels in love with your spouse every day. And I want you to think about that. I mean, this is something that you can have. Think about all the heartache that you've gone through, and now imagine just feeling lighter and freer than you've been in years. I mean, some of you have said that your marriage has been lacking passion, but can you imagine filling that void with intimacy, with closeness, with excitement again? Because you absolutely can have a relationship where your spouse craves to be around you. This happens all the time, going from all that dread to all this closeness and excitement and intimacy again. If this is what you want, and if, those questions earlier described your situation, there are 5 simple shifts, 5 secrets, 5 things that you must do to save your marriage. I'm going to walk you through exactly how to begin making those shifts today, even if your spouse is out the door, not interested in the marriage anymore. And so, who am I? My name is Mark Johnston. I'm the co-founder of High Thrive Coaching, and I'm the one that created the High Thrive system of change. Over the last decade, I've helped hundreds of people make lasting changes in their life. This is my passion in life. And with me is my partner, Heather Choate, someone who's absolutely amazing.
Thank you, Mark. So just a quick intro to who I am. I'm also the co-founder of High Thrive. I'm a 27-time best-selling author and renowned mindset coach. I've helped inspired hundreds of thousands of people just like you. I actually fought breast cancer while I was pregnant with our 6th child. And going through that experience with the love of my life, it really made us stronger, and it showed us what it really takes to build a successful relationship and one that thrives.
Yeah, I've seen many individuals and many couples all trying to make changes in their life. And I get it. Making change can be difficult. Now, with these people, some came in and they worked their butt off. They worked hard to transform their lives, and they walked away better off. Others, they sought help, but they struggled with the same problems for years, never really making much progress. And, I began to wonder, okay, what was the difference here? What was the difference between those who actually saw change and those who didn't? And I became obsessed with that question of what the difference was. All of them were suffering, all had problems, but some worked no matter what the cost, and others didn't. And, I began to research, I began to study success stories. I interviewed couples that saved their marriages, trying to figure out, okay, how to help people make that essential shift that leads to change. And after I started applying what I learned, my own life changed, the lives of my clients changed, and we literally cracked the code to what exactly it takes to bring a couple with someone who in a situation where someone's checked out, someone's out the door, and how to bring them back together, build a marriage that's happy and one that actually thrives. So the question is, will you save your marriage? I'd like to present the 5 shifts to save your marriage, even if your spouse is checked out. These are some of the things that are most brought up when people talk about problems in their relationship. They talk about money problems. They talk about sex. They talk about affairs or infidelity. They talk about parenting issues, child rearing issues. They talk about arguments. They talk about problems in communication. And the thing is, these are just symptoms. They're nothing more than that. And when you treat symptoms, the problem doesn't really go away. It becomes masked. It's almost as if you put someone came in for cancer treatment and stuck a Band-Aid on there, or you gave them some pain pills to make some of the pain go away. Ultimately, in this case, if you solved your concerns with any of these issues, what would happen is, another problem would crop up somewhere to take its place. If you solve the problems with money, there'd still be other problems. If you got to the point where you didn't have as many arguments, or if you could get through those arguments better, there would still be problems, because these are just symptoms. And it's because you haven't made the first shift. And the first shift is providing what's actually needed. And I don't mean just for your spouse, but I mean for you as well. And what I mean by providing what's needed, I don't mean to say that, okay, you haven't been doing anything. I'm sure that you've been going to work. I'm sure that you've been, helping out with kids, cleaning up around the house. I'm sure you're doing lots of things to help out, to provide what you think is, to provide. The shift here is actually to figure out what's actually needed and to give that in the relationship. You see, there's a certain mentality out there that after a certain amount of time, the spark within a marriage, it just naturally dies. We talk about how as time goes on, there's less intimacy, there's less sex, there's less fun, there's more work, there's more stress, there's more tension. And people resign themselves to this inevitability. They think, okay, that's just what happens in a relationship. You go 10, 15 years and things kind of get boring. And eventually what happens is people tire of this unhappy relationship. And, I just want to tell you that this absolutely does not have to be the case. It all boils down to some simple needs and whether those needs are met within the relationship. And what I mean by that is that there are some basic emotional needs that everyone has. I get people all the time saying, okay, I'm not an emotional person. I'm not really in touch with my feelings. And I guarantee you, everyone has these basic emotional needs here. And while you might be doing some things to meet some of those needs, the fact that your marriage is on the rocks means that there's something missing here. And we're talking about, like I said, these needs for certainty, these needs for connection, for growth, for contribution, these basic needs. This is what's missing here. And you see, when needs are not met, certain things happen. People become stressed. They become sad. They get angry. There's more tension in the home. There's disappointment that happens. There's more arguments. When these needs are not being met, it's draining. It makes us feel tired, and we tend to lash out a little bit. All those symptoms that we were talking about a moment ago, the arguments, when there's less intimacy, less sex, less fun, more work, more stress, more tension, it's because needs are not being met. And you see, when needs are being met, it's absolutely amazing. So even if you can meet two of these needs, especially the two primary needs in a person, you start to build a connection there. When you start meeting more needs, like 4 needs, you really start having a strong bond there. When you can help someone else grow, and you can help them feel significant, and you help them feel secure, you really are going to have a strong bond. And when you can meet all 6 of those needs, the person that you're meeting those needs for, they will absolutely begin running to be with you. All these symptoms, the stress, the sadness, the anger, tension, disappointment, they all disappear. And when you have these needs met, you have lasting connection and fulfillment. When you can master meeting yours and your partner's needs, this is when you really start thriving. You have a marriage that can weather any storm. The reason people can put up with hardships in a marriage, it's because they have hope that those needs will be met. They have hope that things can be good, and they still have some things sustaining them. And so, I'd like to turn this over to Heather for a second to talk about the next shift that we have here.
Thank you, Mark. And can you see the value in this, what Mark was just talking about? That when you really identify what your partner's needs are and when they know what your needs are and you meet those, that is what builds the strong foundation. But what do you do when your spouse is pulling away? That's why you're here, right? They don't want to work on the marriage anymore. Maybe they've told you that. Maybe they have divorce papers in hand. Maybe they say, I don't want to go to counseling. I don't want to work on this. I don't want to fix this. And what do you do when needs haven't been met for a long time? And this brings us right to shift two, which is save your marriage by yourself. Now, conventional wisdom tells you that you need both partners involved to make things work. You need two to tango, or you can't do anything if your spouse doesn't love you anymore. If you've gotten to that point, nothing you can do. But that simply is not true. You see, the truth is that you have a huge impact on the environment within your own relationship. And I can prove this with an example. We recently just helped a client whose husband was checked out. They were separated for several months, and their communication had deteriorated to the point where he no longer spoke to her. He did not respond to her attempts to communicate. And every time she reached out asking him to work on the marriage with her, he pushed himself further away. She was at a complete loss as to what to do. She wanted her marriage to work. She simply didn't know how she could possibly get in communication or even save her marriage. But her desire to save her marriage was stronger than her fears or her doubts. She knew that she could not change him, but she could work on herself. We helped her get the right kind of communication going with her husband, and he responded favorably. We guided her on what to say and how to say it, and he soon moved back home with her, and they began working to repair their love. This all happened because she was willing to take action first. She didn't wait for him to come around and act as an equal partner. She decided to go first. And when she learned everything she had been lacking up until that point and how she treated her husband and their marriage, they very quickly changed. Now they're back together and they're building that strong marriage that they both crave. We have seen absolute miracles happen when even one spouse steps up and decides to save the relationship. Really, the relationship just needed some nurturing and care. And likely you're here because you have a similar story with your spouse at one time or another. Perhaps there was a time when, both of you got really angry, you got upset with each other, or perhaps there was a time when someone else was incredibly depressed or sad. In many cases, one partner does something to lift the other out of their negative mood. Now circumstances have changed, but this fact doesn't change. You have a huge amount of influence on your spouse and on your relationship. You can do things to fix your marriage now without waiting for your spouse to, quote unquote, get on board. In fact, we even recommend against trying to get your spouse to work on the marriage at this stage if they have checked out. The problem is that when someone is pulling away from the marriage, the last thing they want to do is to work on the relationship. And that's pretty natural. People don't like to be told that they need to be fixed, that they have the problems. In their head, they probably have very valid reasons for feeling the way that they do and doing the things that they're doing. But I get it. I understand. It can sometimes be confusing when you are making all of these efforts to fix things and your husband or your wife is just pulling further and further away from you.
You see, the problem is that when someone's pulling away from the marriage, the last thing that they want to do is work on the relationship. And this is where many people make a big mistake. They try to fix the marriage, and they even, talk about it as such. They say, okay, honey, let's go fix the marriage. People They might tell their spouse that let's concentrate on fixing things. Let's go out on more dates. Let's plan on spending more time together. Let's work on us. And I want to tell you, do not do this. And that brings us to our third shift, is to stop trying to fix the marriage. And like I said, the main reason for this is that no one likes to be worked on. People don't like to think of themselves as someone who needs fixing. This isn't to say that you should stop trying to make improvements or stop trying to make things better. It's mostly about how you view the work and how you describe it and how you go about actually doing this fixing. In general, unless your spouse volunteers themselves, do not try and get them to work on the marriage. When we first move towards healing a relationship, it often causes more problems. To ask a partner who's withdrawing from the relationship to start and commit to the relationship. Marriage in this situation is in dire need of support, because what may seem like the right move might actually be having the opposite effect as what was intended. And the reason for this is, if your spouse has checked out, trying to pull them back, and it's just going to backfire. If they're pulling away, they're likely considering other options. To this person who's checking out, these options might seem like they might finally offer some relief to some tension, or they might finally bring some happiness. And trying to pull them back into a situation that they believe won't change or is causing unhappiness will make them upset for the time being. Now, for those of you that actually have a willing partner, I still want each of you to work on the marriage on your own. I mean, yes, you can talk and discuss your relationship, but what will be gone is all those expectations for your partner to change. If you're both working on things, you'll just simply see the change. But what we want to avoid are the letdowns when something we expect doesn't happen right away. That leads to bitterness, snippy or snide comments. It leads to disappointment. The new pattern, instead of trying to get people to work on the marriage, is simply to focus on satisfaction, understanding, empathy, instead of fixing things. When you're able to turn things from quote unquote, fixing you or solving you or repairing us, fixing us, you can shift that to caring for you, loving you, understanding you. It will absolutely stop pushing them away.
Let's talk about the stakes if things continue as they are. If your spouse is checked out and you continue to head down the same path that you've been going on, and this goes for any relationship where one spouse is not wanting to work on it right now, what's going to happen if you continue down this path is that, as Mark explained, your spouse is going to retreat further and further from you. Can you see that? Can you see the pattern? What they're going to do is they're going to keep you at arm's length. There isn't that safety there. There isn't that connection. And the gap between you is only going to continue to widen. Unfortunately, this often leads to separation and divorce looming in the future. And we know that's not what any of you want. But unfortunately, this is what has happened to many of you. Our dog recently tore her ACL, and it was a partial tear. What we discovered was that this tear was only going to get worse and worse and worse until it finally ruptured. When you're in this state where you and your spouse have this dissonance between you and one of you are checked out, unless you make immediate amends, that gap will only continue to widen. These are all signs that the relationship is getting ready to come apart. Now, here's what it takes to succeed. As Mark mentioned, it takes that understanding your spouse. Love, bringing absolute love and adoration, appreciation to your partner. It takes care of putting their needs first, understanding what their needs are, and patience through this process, and responsibility for your part in it. And here we're going to talk about taking charge versus blaming. When you take charge is where you accept responsibility for your part. When you're in a state of blaming and you're always looking at other people and how they have affected you and where you are at, that blame, it doesn't go away when you find a new relationship. I'm sure you've seen that pattern in someone else, right? They think that they're going to get a new relationship and it's going to fix everything. But what happens is that the same problems go with them. When you take charge, you create your own happiness. When you're blaming, you're in a state of expecting someone else to meet your needs or make you happy. And what that ultimately means is that you are not in charge of your own life. When you are taking charge, you give openly and freely without expectation. And when you're blaming, you become a victim to circumstance.
You see, and this brings us to our fourth shift. And that is basically, you need to take charge. You need to stop wasting time and actually dedicate yourself to what's going to bring some change here. I'm going to be honest here, you can't dabble with this. You don't dabble with your job. You probably didn't dabble in your education. You certainly didn't dabble when you were dating your spouse. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be married. Now is the time for some dedication. You see, the thing is, you don't have to waste years in therapy. Now, I want to talk to you about my experience in running therapy. When I was running traditional therapy, I saw an interesting and somewhat disturbing trend. Some people would come in with very specific and dire needs. They would be assigned a general, someone who is familiar with a wide variety of problems, how to help with those problems. And people would spend that 1 hour each week talking about problems. Afterward, they would go home and not think about what needed to be done until the next session. This is a symptom of the normal therapy model, and frankly, it's not an ideal way to solve most problems. Change doesn't happen when you spend 1 hour a week on that change, and it doesn't happen when you apply general solutions. You see, similarly, to really make deep changes, you have to dedicate yourself to that cause. Now, if you were tasked with an important project at work, would you work just 1 hour a week on that project? Of course not. Would you forget about that project the rest of the week? No. And would you only speak about that project when someone else asks you about it? Of course not. You would dedicate the necessary resources. You would work overtime to meet those deadlines. You would do whatever it takes to get the job done. And how much more important is your marriage than your job? You see, problems don't have to take forever to make progress and change. Change can happen quickly when you dedicate enough effort and resources to make those changes. Dedication equals results. Beyond not giving problems enough time, the other thing that I saw is I'd also see many couples, therapists, counselors, pastors, everyone, is trying to make some change. I saw that they were solving problems out of order. And people might have had the best intent. They really wanted to make some change. They really wanted to help. But the thing is, most people are focused on fixing symptoms instead of the root issues. They talk about communication skills, and they talk about trying to, solve anger problems, and they try to talk about, all these surface level issues. The result is that you end up with wasted effort because people weren't dedicating enough time, and they weren't focusing that time on the right problems. They're solving them out of order. The thing is, you need to address the root of the problem. Addressing symptoms, it simply doesn't help. Like we were talking about earlier, if you address the root, or if you address the symptoms, other problems are going to crop up. Addressing the symptoms doesn't lead to change, and it doesn't lead to progress. You see, different problems need different approaches, and big concerns need dedicated resources. Once again, going back to that job analogy, if you had a big problem, you're not just going to have, one person working on that job a couple hours a week. No. In this case, you need a guided, systemized process that's going to get to those root issues. You don't go to a general doctor for cancer treatment, and you don't go to a general therapist for dire marriage problems. You need a specialized approach that allows you to solve problems while building a strong foundation. You need someone who's actually dedicated to solving that specific problem that you have. You don't want someone that just kind of dabbles in your problem.
That is absolutely right, Mark. And now I want to draw a line in the sand. we're going to talk about the old way that you may have been solving problems, maybe out of order, like Mark was just talking about, versus the new way. Now, as we said, there were 5 shifts. And before we get to the very last one, we're going to do just a little recap about that old way versus the new way. The old way is that you may have been ignoring some of these problems for a really long time, trying to keep the monster, in the closet, out of sight, out of mind. But it's probably gotten to the point where things have become so bad that you can no longer ignore them. Oftentimes, people try to ignite a problem. They fight fire with fire, fighting back, demanding your spouse to work on it now, and then spreading the problem to others. The cross your fingers approach to marriage, where you're just hoping or praying that it works out, but you're not actually taking the proper actions or steps needed to really solve these issues. Getting to the root, when you fix that root issue, everything else literally will solve itself. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it absolutely happens and it absolutely works. And then Mark talked about the counseling. Years and thousands of dollars wasted without getting to that root. Mark and I, we recently helped a couple. They had been in counseling for over 20 years. And they said that within just a few hours with us, they got more value out of that than those previous 20 years because everyone was addressing those symptoms. They were addressing addiction issues. They were addressing love languages. And none of those actually got to the root of what this couple were experiencing. So that is the old way. Let's jump right in here to the new way. The new way is that we're going to provide what is actually needed. We're getting right to the root here, getting needs met for you and for your spouse. We're going to save our marriage by going first and recognize that influence that you have in the relationship and your ability to start to turn things around. Can you recognize how much influence you actually have? Can you step up and be brave to be the first one to start to turn things around? We're going to focus on satisfaction. Instead of trying to fix the marriage, we're going to show care, love, and understanding to your spouse that is pulling further away from you. And finally, dedicate yourself to change. Change your marriage by improving and changing yourself first. And when you do that, everything is going to fall into place the way that it needs to be. Now, your way, it hasn't been working. Something needs to change and you need to do something differently. You've tried your ideas, but things haven't been changing. And that's exactly why you need the 5th shift.
So the 5th shift here is you just got to accept some guidance here. You need some help. You need some support. Simply most people don't know how to solve their problems. That's just the way things are. If you knew how to solve your problems, you wouldn't have those problems anymore. When we first started this business, I'm going to be honest, we had no idea how to run things. We didn't know how to get people to listen to us so that we could help them. We needed guidance. And you're probably here because you've been stuck and you need someone to guide you out of your problems as well. I mean, there's just simply times when we need help when we don't have the right kind of knowledge. I've seen a lot of people try to use books, self-help books. They've tried to go to YouTube. They've tried blogs. They've tried asking their friends. And you know what? It doesn't work. They end up with a lot of wasted time and effort. You end up with possibly scattered or misleading information. You end up with different experts claiming opposite solutions. You lack someone to hold you accountable with many of these things. And so you end up without the results that you were looking for. The fact is you need guidance. I've seen what happens when people try to do things on their own. I've seen close friends, I've seen family go through heartbreaking divorce. It's led to serious problems with their children. Years of therapy trying to deal with this fallout. It leads to further unhappiness. It leads to custody problems. And it just leads to continued fights even after the divorce. And that's not something that I want for you.
Thank you, Mark. So today we promised to give you some results and show you how to quickly get out of the loop that you've been stuck in so that you can actually start seeing some changes. We also showed you how to get peace and taught you what you need to do to reduce that tension and conflicts so that you can have that peace when you come home. You have a safe and nurturing environment to be in. How to have that hope. Your spouse is checked out. They may have one foot out the door, but it is absolutely possible to get them back in your arms again. We also talked about happiness, how to get to the point where you actually enjoy being in the marriage again. You come home with a smile on your face, a hug and a kiss for your spouse, and you are just thrilled and happy with your marriage. And time. Time is so valuable. How to save time, energy, and effort, and how to get what you want now so you don't have to waste years and years in therapy hashing out the same problems without getting any results. So ultimately, this is what you will need to win. Those 5 shifts. Provide what is needed. Save your marriage by starting first. Focus on satisfaction. Dedicate yourself to change and accept guidance. Now you have a choice right now. You can let your marriage continue in the direction it is going. You can continue with all the pain, the heartache, the loneliness. You can continue with the tension, the uncertainty, and the insecurity. Or you can start enjoying yourself with the love of your life again. You can be in a marriage where you absolutely can't wait to be near each other. You can have that peace again, that security, knowing that no matter what happens, you and your love will see things through. Now, Mark and I and our team, we've set aside some time in the next week to speak to you personally about how you can apply these ideas to your marriage starting today. Every marriage is different, and so we really need to work with you to see how to apply these shifts and these changes to your marriage and to your situation. So like I said, we've set aside some time that we can help you with these things and start applying these ideas to your marriage today. And the cost for this, it is absolutely free. Now, every marriage is different, like I said, and you need to know how to apply these shifts to your marriage. Now, this call, it is not for everyone. So let's talk about who exactly this is for. We simply cannot assume anything. And the reality is it's really not for everyone, but there are certain qualities in those that we can help. And they include those that are committed. You must absolutely be committed to saving your marriage. If you haven't made that decision yet, then we can't help you. So commit now to not be on the fence, but to commit to save your marriage. You must be brave. You must have some courage. You must be willing to be a little humble and make the first move, and also have the ability to do so. So we are looking for people who will step up and save their marriage on their own. Like we said, even if your partner has checked out and you need to be the one to move first. Miracles will happen. Now, you must also have the ability to do so. Let's talk about what that means. Sometimes we see people who they really want to save their marriage and get their spouse back. But when it comes down to it, they're unable to make decisions about the marriage on their own. So if you cannot make financial decisions to invest in yourself to save your marriage, then we can't help you. There are other resources out there that can serve you best. But if you can make financial decisions and decisions about your marriage on your own, and you have the courage to make the first move, then we can absolutely help you. And finally, you need to make enough money or have the money so you can afford to invest the proper resources to save your marriage. It simply needs to make sense that you are in a position within your life, because it's going to take time, money, and energy, and these things are needed to save your marriage and your family. And if not, if these things don't sound like you, then that's okay. This is not for you. Now, if you feel like you are the absolute right fit for this, let's talk about what you will experience on the call. We call it a free breakthrough session. What you're going to get is clarity about exactly why your spouse is checked out. So many times we get into problems and we don't even know why they have happened or what to do about them. So, we're going to uncover what the main challenges are specifically for you in your marriage. And let's face it, every marriage is different, and we need to know exactly what is going on in yours. This will help you get crystal clear on what you need to work on going forward. We will help you figure out what the root problems are, those hidden issues that rarely get discussed. We help you develop a game plan on the best way for you to move forward. Beyond this, if we determine that you would be a good fit for working with us, we may offer to help you. I say this because not everyone is a good fit, and we do not make offers to everyone. We only want to help those who are ready for change. Our custom program is designed to save marriages, create change, and develop strategies to make those changes last. And not only that, but it is designed to do so quickly. We do not believe in the 1 hour per week model of therapy. We guide you through our 4 pillars of success in a systemized process so you see the results every step of the way and get to that safe, happy, and thriving marriage that you want. As we promised, there will be a gift for all of you who attended this webinar. So please check your email for that gift. It is very, very valuable. And do not wait one moment to save your marriage. Too many have waited too long, only to find out that it is too late. Choose to break through now and show your commitment to your marriage and happiness by taking advantage of this free opportunity. Thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing your marriage thrive.